Can't hear.
Thank you. I want to call the Finance Committee meeting to order on March 5th. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please note that this meeting is in person and is being recorded. I just want to make one statement before we begin. We do not have public statements. So the people that will be speaking tonight are the folks up here, obviously, our two guests, and I invited Bess, if she had comment, to make a comment as well. So just please be aware of that. So, our special guest, who's speaking first? Dr. Saber McGuire. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being called a special guest. So before Mr. Kiley gets into the details of the FY27 budget, I'd just like to provide the Finance Committee with a little context about the work behind it. So this budget was developed with careful attention, and we want you to really understand that, with both the needs of our students and the broader fiscal environment here in Dartmouth. We recognize that you, as a Finance Committee, play an important role in developing budgets and in recommending budgets, and you help to guide the town in making decisions. And we appreciate you and the time and consideration you bring to your work, and we also appreciate that oftentimes you have members of your committee who come to our school committee meetings and communicate with us on a regular basis. So, like many districts across Massachusetts, we continue to experience cost pressures related to contractual obligations, special education services, transportation, and utilities. And so throughout the development of this budget, we have really worked to identify efficiencies and ensure that existing resources are being used as effectively as possible. At the same time, we recognize that's a delicate balance. And you're going to hear Mr. Kiley talk about that balance and get into the details of the work that's gone on behind the scenes. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saber McGuire, and thank you, Finance Committee. You know, as you probably know, we've been working on this budget for a number of months, and we appreciate your patience and, attention to our presentation tonight. So, as Dr. Saber McGuire mentioned, this budget is intentional. It is tied to the strategic plan. Specifically, there are objectives in the strategic plan that address budget, but also address all areas of the student experience at the Dartmouth Public Schools. And the budget is really targeted to support achievement of those objectives. So I thought I'd start with a little about our students. Student enrollment for next year is expected to be quite stable. Elementary class size currently averages 22 students. We're projecting that again for next year. Middle school class size averages 21 students. And high school class size, it varies. There are classes with 30 kids in them. There are also classes with that number in the teens, depending on the type of class, an AP class, or may have less students in it than a general math class, let's say. So our student-to-teacher ratio overall is 12-1. That's slightly larger than the state, which is 11.9-1. A little more about our kids. So we continue to see that 43% of our students are in the high needs category. So it sort of topped off with COVID there in 21-22 and has remained stable since that point. We were happy to see that our low-income population actually came down a little bit to 29%, and it seems to have sort of leveled off in that vicinity since being up at 33% in 21-22. Again, that's good. but it is substantially up, 11% up from where it was 10 years ago. Our students with disabilities, we can continue to see increases. We're up to 21.9% from 13.5% 10 years ago. Overall, what we're really seeing, we're continuing to see an increase in needs for our kids. So this budget directly tries to address those needs. So the per pupil spending, we're $3,824 per student below the state average. Of 319 districts, we're 263rd in the state. I was a little surprised to see that the variance increased as much as it did. Last year, we were $2,752 per student below the state average. So more than $1,000 per student increase just since last year. So what that tells us is the gap is widening, and basically we're falling further behind. We're $592 per student below average in teachers. Of the 319 districts, we're 187th. In the prior year, we were $276 per student below average in teachers. So again, falling behind in that category. We're 38% or $1,418 per student below average in insurance and benefits. We were 303rd of 319 districts in spending. In the prior year, it was pretty consistent. We were 38% below average, but $1,264 per student, so a little bit of widening in that area. We're 32% or $243 per student below average in administration, 281st of 319 districts. That was similar in terms of the deficit to the prior year. In operations and maintenance, we're 35% or $650 per student below average, 286th of 319 districts, similar to the prior year. We're 8% or $201 per student below average in pupil services spending. We're 163rd of 319 districts. In the prior year, we were just $9 per pupil below average, so from $9 to $201 per pupil. So again, widening a little bit the gap there. So, what does this data tell us? Obviously, because we're an above-average school district and we're significantly below average in spending, tells you you're getting a good bang for your buck in terms of the cost to benefit ratio. But I think between this data and this data, this is not a sustainable pattern. And so with increased student needs and a continuing widening of the gap in terms of what we're spending compared to other districts, we're going to get to the point where it's just not sustainable for us, and more investment's going to be required. So this is another way to look at it. So this is our staff per 100 students. So this is a Department of Ed published, and you can pull it right off their website. And you'll notice, really, I guess what's significant about this is that every category, we have less staff per 100 students than the state average, which I guess shouldn't be surprising if we're spending so much less. So in terms of the FY27 budget, there are some significant factors that we had to consider in preparation. The biggest one by far is salaries. It represents about 80% of our budget. Where in the people business, we take care of more than 3,000 students every day, and therefore we need lots of staff to be able to do that. So cost of living adjustments for this upcoming budget year range from 3.5% to 5%, plus contractual step, longevity, and other contractual increases mean that our salaries overall, so 80% of our budget, is going up by about 5%. So that's by far the biggest portion of the increase that we're proposing. But there are other things. Funding to support our increasingly needy student population in terms of contracted services, tuitions, transportation, all are increasing significantly. For some areas of the budget, we've incorporated an adjustment to reflect actual costs. So things like supplies, we actually haven't increased those budgets since 2019. And we know what's happening in our own personal lives and our work lives, and the rate of inflation of even just common supplies has been significant since 2019. And because of budgetary limitations, we haven't addressed those, and we've tried to do more with less. But at this point we need to adjust those to what they should be. So we're doing that in this budget. Similarly, we've adjusted athletics and music budgets that haven't been increased to the level needed to support those programs. We've also increased the maintenance and utilities budget significantly. We've talked a lot in town and various committees about the need to address our facilities, and I think you're well aware that our facilities are getting older and they need more and more attention. This doesn't reflect major improvements. So this is just routine day-to-day maintenance to try and keep up the facilities. So this is what we believe we should be spending to do that. So we have some budget recommendations for fiscal year 27. The first several are supporting our high-needs student population. So we are proposing 4 education support professionals, 1 in each of the elementary schools. So back on slide 6, you can see that we are significantly understaffed. I can take you back there in terms of paraprofessionals. That's what the state calls them. We call them education support professionals. We're significantly understaffed. So these 4 positions would directly support increased student needs. We are also proposing 3 registered behavior technicians at the elementary schools to support students and staff implement behavior plans. So registered behavior technicians, they implement behavior plans that are created by board-certified behavior analysts. So we have 2 board-certified behavior analysts in the district that really try and create plans that can address some pretty acute student needs. And these folks would help implement those plans. We currently have 1 adjustment counselor at the Dartmouth Middle School. For 840 kids, that's not right, not appropriate. And we are proposing adding an adjustment counselor at the middle school. We're also proposing adding a job coach for the Atlas program at Dartmouth High School. So we currently have 10 students in the program. We created this program a couple of years ago. This program the Atlas program, if you don't know, serves students who are ages 18 to 22. So post grade 12, we're responsible for their education until they, through age 22. So next year we're going to have 14 students in that program, and which is fantastic, because if they weren't in-house in our program, in the schools in their town, they would be going to a school somewhere else, and we'd be paying for them to go to a school somewhere else. So it's much more cost-effective to keep them in district, and it's great that they're, staying in school here in Dartmouth. But in order to accommodate 14 students, we need this job coach position. So, in fact, we're saving money by doing it this way. We also have recommended 1 special education team facilitator position. So that position will support students with special needs and the staff that serves them. This position would allow us to have a full-time special ed team facilitator at the high school and Dartmouth Middle School. Right now, we have people who split. So we're proposing that. We've also recommended the addition of 1 additional maintenance staff person. So we have 5 maintenance staff people, and given the age of our facilities and what we're trying to accomplish, we really feel it would be most appropriate to add a position there. We've, again, included the human resources position that we've previously recommended. It's a clear area of need for us. We have a technology staff position included to provide needed student and staff support. We've also included a stipend for seasonal athletics event coordination. So that's for us to better manage some of the largest public events that happen in this town. Our sporting events tend to be, really, well-attended public events in town. And it's a stipend position, $15,000 spread out across the year to help coordinate those events. We've also included a halftime FTE elementary instrumental music teacher to help us reinstitute elementary music lessons in grade 5. So that went away. That opportunity was eliminated for kids a number of years ago, and we'd really like to bring that back as a good opportunity for students. So what does that mean? There are 13 and a half staff positions that we have recommended and added to this budget request. There were other requests that, that our team, our principals, our administrators, and staff feel are important, and that, we were hoping to include in the budget, but we weren't able to. A behavior specialist at the elementary level, that's a board-certified behavior analyst position that I talked about, adding another one there. Special education teacher at the elementary level to support students, and a reading specialist at Dartmouth Middle School. But we did not incorporate those into the budget, unfortunately. So I'm happy to answer questions about school choice spending plan, but I won't go into it in detail. What I will say is we would be continuing the plan that we worked in collaboration with you folks on the Finance Committee and the Select Board last spring to gradually reduce reliance on school choice over the next 5 years. Well, now it'll be 4 years. So at that time, last spring, the boards agreed upon this plan, which was to increase operating budget spending by $245,000 annually to bring us to the point after 5 years in which we expend what we bring in. So we bring in about $700,000 a year in school choice. Now, I will say that school choice, we don't have to participate in school choice. The school committee decides if we are going to participate in school choice. They do that on an annual basis. So there isn't a guarantee that revenue continues to come in, but it has been for quite some time and will be for next year. So, obviously we'd have to adjust the plan if that weren't the case, but this would get us to that point where we're, spending approximately $700,000 a year. So what does all that mean? So the fiscal year 26 budget is $55,431,558. We add in the impact of those key budget factors, so that whole slide that I showed you and explained, which is $2,781,229, which is a 5.02% increase. And then the impact of that school choice reliance plan, $245,000 added back into the budget from school choice, which is 0.44%. We add in the budget recommendations, which are $768,500. Those are the 13 and a half FTEs that we have proposed. And the FY27 draft budget is $59,226,287, or 6.85% increase over the FY26 budget. So what does that look like in terms of how we spend the money? So instruction, this category of the budget would increase 5.3%. Administration would increase 11%. Maintenance and utilities, 10.7%. Other services, 12.7%. Tuitions, 9%. Total budget increase, again, 8.5 technically. Medicaid it's a small separate budget line. It's, as you can see right now, $46,935. We do need an increase of at least 10, we need more than an increase of 10%, to be honest, but an increase of at least 10% in that budget line. That budget line generates revenue for the town. So last year, in fiscal year '25, it generated $300,197 of revenue to the town. So we have a person who does all the Medicaid paperwork, essentially, and files the claims, and then the town gets revenue from it. So that money pays the consultant who helps us submit the paperwork and part of the salary of the person who does all the work. And obviously generating $300,000 in revenue in fiscal year '25, we want to make sure we maximize that and continue to do that. Next steps. Well, March 2nd isn't a next step, I guess, and so it already passed. But March 5th, we're here tonight, speaking with you folks. We have a budget advisory group. I think we just determined what date that is. I believe that's going to be March 19th, if everybody can make it. March 23rd, we have a public hearing on the budget, so a school committee meeting in which there's a public hearing. That'll be at Dartmouth High School. We'll have the opportunity for the school committee to review the budget further that night, and I believe that we are trying to set up a town budget presentation for that meeting and possibly a joint meeting with the select board at that March 23rd meeting. We'd love to have you all there as well to, in the audience. That would be great. And then April 13th, school committee budget review and vote. That's at a school committee meeting. And then June spring annual town meeting, and maybe some other things that we haven't yet encountered, some other dates certainly. But that's the bones of what we have left to do. And I'll take a break from talking and.
So I have a comment, because I watched Monday night's meeting, and I understand it's a challenge for the town to meet this request. So that gives me a couple of questions that I want to ask. What reductions did we take on the general government side to get to what we offered, the town offered, the school committee for their budget?
So we've talked about health insurance. That's a big piece of cost, obviously. We were just informed that our rate increase is through Maya. We are still exploring other opportunities, but through Maya, our rate increase is about 8%. We had budgeted a little bit more than that. We were in that 10 to 12% increase. So that freed up a little bit of the cash, we'll call it. We also, I think in our review with departments, the message has been clear that we really are focusing all of our efforts on education this year due to a lot of the reasons that Jim has opined on. So departments, I think I've mentioned before, we don't have any, everything's level service in the general fund, outside of schools, with the exception of 25% of the budget for a DPW business manager, and then part-time administrative support for our conservation department. Gary and I have had conversations. We're actually going to withdraw the request for a facilities director, and that helps to free up some of that funding. So we're working, and we've let all of our departments know that it's bare bones this year for their increases, and that's what we've seen.
Okay, and my second question, and this comes from something I heard at the meeting as well, that with that change and lowering what the school is asking for, what exact contractual obligations are we not meeting for this proposed reduction?
Well, so staff raises. We wouldn't, if our increase was going to be 3.94%, which is the 245, which is 3.5%, and the $245,000 from school choice. We wouldn't be able to pay people the raises that we've agreed.
Okay. And I have many more, but in fairness, does someone else have? Terry.
Well, I just have a request, just to say, I feel that there are things in the budget that are not optional. What you just said, I don't think that's optional. I think that what I would like to know, maybe either tonight or if you can do it later, I'd appreciate it, the Atlas program and the RBT services that you're providing, could somebody do up a worksheet that says, this is what we're paying, and this is what we'd pay if we vented out or sent kids out of it? Because when you say kids have to go to other schools, it's not other schools like these. It's schools that tuition are at least 60,000 plus transportation. But there are people on the committee that I don't think would know that, and it would be helpful, I think, for them to have that.
Well, yeah, I mean, to give a basic answer to your question, one student, so one additional student that we would have to send out would cost more than the Atlas Job Coach. So, never mind 4.
So in my mind, all things are not optional.
No, that's
because
not optional.
Some things, that is something that if you went to court and fought it, you would lose. Same thing, I think, on the contractual stuff. If you went to court and fought it, you would lose, because it's not a future contract that we're talking about, right?
No, I mean, we have contractual agreements with folks, yeah.
Deirdre?
Hi, thank you. Just a couple questions. I'm new to the Finance Committee, and I appreciate, Jim, your hour and a half you spent with me early on so that I could acclimate myself here, so thank you very much. I appreciate very much you pointing out Medicare and how we have to separate that, because Jim is right in regards to the money that generates on behalf of either your town, your regional, or wherever your school district is. So to spend the $51,000 to get the $40,000, and you literally have to bubble everybody's 3 times 30 times 15 times, oh, snow day, bummer, go back and readjust. So thank you very much for pointing that out. I think that's always a pretty big one. Your school choice entry grades, is it just grade 9 or?
Yes.
Just grade 9?
Well,
Thank you.
high school, we can accept 10th graders.
You do?
Yeah, occasionally. We so we begin the process by trying to bring kids in at 9th grade.
But maybe
if
not
we needed more
11th
kids.
or 12th.
Right. Yeah, very seldom do we bring in students in 11th or 12th
Okay.
grade, but occasionally we might. We also, the state allows for a preference for siblings. So if a sibling was a 10th grader and wanted to come in, sibling
Makes
of a
sense.
student who was already there, we may, accommodate that request, so.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to your tuition, your 9,000 series, I don't see circuit breaker anywhere.
Right.
Is your tuition netted
Yes.
100% of your circuit breaker incoming?
Yes, so the circuit breaker money this year that is being paid to the town of Dartmouth, so during fiscal year '26, is going to be spent as part of the fiscal year '27 budget in tuition. So tuitions overall are about $5 million. So, this is only the operating budget portion of
Right.
tuitions.
But the 900 series that is in the $59 million is netted from the anticipated
Correct.
circuit breaker reimbursement.
Correct.
Do you have any monies left in circuit breaker fund balance and/or other fund balances outside of school choice?
We expend the entirety of our, so we have a couple of sources that, of funds to pay for tuitions. Circuit breaker, for those who don't know, is state funding for students who cost over a certain threshold, okay? So it's a threshold of per pupil expenses, and what happens is a student who costs more than that threshold, the state will give us a portion of the money back. So that is one source. We are required to spend that in its entirety by the June 30th of the year after we receive the money. So we receive the money quarterly, and we're receiving it right now during fiscal year '26, and we will expend it in its entirety by June 30th of fiscal year '27. If that, so that's one source. The other source that we spend, that we use to fund tuitions is our IDEA grant.
So that,
So that we spend in its entirety each year as a source to pay tuitions. IDEA is a federal program, special education grant that we receive, about $1 million.
so there's no fund balance left in circuit breaker as there is in school choice? Okay,
No.
thank you.
We cannot legally extend those funds beyond June 30th of the year after we receive those monies.
Yes, then we can pay summer tuitions and roll it forward based on some of those accounting methodologies we might have available to us. With respect to 93,142 and 89,313, is that the slide here that says grants for 1.8 million?
Yes, yes. Yep,
Okay.
You're speaking of the 240 grant?
That's 240, sorry.
Yep.
That's old
Well, it's the
school.
240, that's the DESI code, but 94,142 is the federal code, yes.
Sorry, thank you.
That's the special ed IDEA grant that we're talking about, that funds mostly tuitions. It also pays for some of our staff, but the bulk of that grant is for tuitions.
And the total values of those two grants, is that the 1.8 million? Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, that's all my questions.
For now,
Yeah, no, I swear.
just joking.
No, I used to be the administrative, I used to be Jim in another language, in another world, so I speak his language, and so, thank you very much.
That's why we're giving numbers that nobody
Yes,
else knows.
So, sorry,
what they
yes,
are.
everybody. Sorry,
Acronyms and numbers.
but I get it, I really have it all, thank you.
So it's good to hear that we were able to free up some cash on the health insurance forecast that we were projecting. I'm hearing that the rest of town government is bare bones level service. Is the 3.5% that is going to be offered to the schools going to allow the schools to have level service?
I mean, if that question's for me, no. It's not possible.
So in that scenario, it would be only the schools that doesn't have a level service budget in that scenario with a 3.5% increase.
Are you asking me a question?
Whoever can answer it.
Well, I think, and I've talked to you about this before, I think the challenge here is I don't want to create a narrative of town versus schools, right? So I think we want to stay away from that perspective because we're all one Dartmouth. That's an important approach here. And we've gone into that recognizing that some departments, which I consider the school a department of the town, being in a higher need scenario than others. And so we've gone into that with that in mind this year. I'm not here to say it's efficient or if it's enough. I think that's why we have a school administration team here. They're presenting, what they need. And Gary and I are here to present what we have available for revenue. That's, and so I think that goes back to, we don't have a problem, in my opinion, of this department getting more than this department. We have a problem of not enough revenue to cover the needs of the community. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think it's effective for us to say town versus, schools, general government versus schools, because the schools operate within the town and are supported by all these departments, right? So, and I'll give the example, there's a lot of things not in the general education budget that are also funded, right, that provide support to the schools. Our health insurance budget is around $9 million. About $7 million of that is school employees. So that's a number you don't see here, comes out of the general government side. Property liability insurance, that is a figure that is funded through the town's fixed costs. That covers all the schools' insurance in there. The police department has 3-4 SROs at the schools, I believe. Some communities fund that through the education budget. In Dartmouth, that's funded out of the police department budget. So we're all one Dartmouth. We're all in this together. And I don't think the issue is one department getting more than the other or cutting more than the other. We have a revenue problem.
I do agree we do have a revenue problem, but I do want to point out that it seems that we are always asking the schools to reduce their staff. to make that budget work. I'll leave it at that.
So I understand that you're saying that, we have a revenue issue, but so far, the Finance Committee hasn't seen, like a spreadsheet that's saying, like we usually see it for. So, we usually vote on that till right before. So, I'm having a hard time understanding, because the past few years, we have given more than the 3%, or the 3.9% that we're proposing to give them. We've given up in the 4.5 at least. So there was only 1 year we gave 3.5.
Last year was 4.2.
4.2, 4.4?
Yeah, so it was 4.3, then 3% the year prior.
Yeah.
That was a challenging year for sure.
We
And
had
then,
quite a few- we let
and then
quite
it
a few
was
people
like
go that year.
4.2 the year prior to that.
So I think it's important for the town to understand, to see at least a tentative spreadsheet, because we're all about transparency. A tentative spreadsheet that says where all the money's going, like at least, a proposal before we get to town meeting and then have it in front of us and not a chance to talk about it. So that the town understands, if we really don't have the revenue, where do we go from here?
That's exactly right.
I would like to
Ryan?
give a couple of comments on this, on the revenue side. I think for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been saying that Dartmouth has a structural problem with its revenue. And I'll just spend about 5 minutes trying to describe it. That since 2014, and I just picked that because the data was around, to the preliminary budget numbers that were shared this year, 13, I know it's changed now, but it was 13.5 for fiscal 27. Non-school services, that is general government services, since 2014 to 2026, have been growing at 2.64%. And schools have been growing in that same period at 3.84%, for a combined total of 3.3. So the issue for us as a town is that, and then the gorilla in the room is the school budget, which is currently at roughly 57% of the total budget. And if you project that out to 2035, it's going to be about almost 60% of the total budget. So what we're faced with is funding a 3.3% budget growth with a property 2.5 constraint. So that means we're 0.8% short when you put the balanced budget plus the 2.5%.
I think you're both saying the same thing.
We are.
just
Well,
in different
but
ways.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
which
point of it
compounds
is,
every year.
it doesn't really, I mean, this is great, but
Yeah,
the issue is we don't have enough revenue.
absolutely. But the town needs to be aware of that, and the town needs to decide, what are we going to do about it?
Exactly right. And so there are a number of options. And they range anywhere from cutting costs across
Not
the board,
working.
one Dartmouth, cutting costs, regionalization. There's some towns doing things like regionalizing their police dispatch, and saving money that way. The other thing would be to look at new revenue sources, which would be things like the economic development that we've discussed before. Things like what kind of people, no, that's not the right term, what kind of families do we want to welcome to Dartmouth in terms of their impact on the school budget? We should be trying to push things like a lot of empty nesters that put in more than they take out. And things of that nature. But it's going to be, I estimated, using the old numbers, that we'd be about $1 million short this year,
Yeah.
which makes it very difficult because you can say you want to do an override, but how many overrides has the town got in it before people start saying, no, I don't want to do an override? So the only way you're going to get an override going forward, maybe 1 time or 2 times, is to start showing that everybody's paying attention to regionalization, increasing revenue, cutting costs, all the other things across all departments.
Right.
So what we need is a plan that covers the whole town from a strategic point of view, which is the initial problem, and then trying to figure out how much we can actually spend and recommend to the voters. And everybody's not going to get what they want, I suspect, in the long run.
Gary?
Just had a few things. So I think it's no surprise that we're here where we are right now. Over the last, I would say, decade, you know, we've struggled in towns like Westport and Dartmouth and the South Coast with limited amount of revenues, and there's a number of outside factors that play into that. We put a list up on the screen the other day with all the fixed costs for the town. These are assessments and charges that we have no control over. The town has no control over. So I think when we put the revenue projections together, we're pretty somewhat conservative because we don't want to be locked in the corner where, you know, we're given a budget that in the same fiscal year, we're having to make cuts. If you remember back in the Romney administration, for those that are in the room, there were 9 C cuts. So that happened mid-year. We had to let teachers go, firemen go, police go in the middle of the year. So we have to be somewhat conservative that we have protection against that. We're hearing from the state that they could have $1 billion revenue deficit in the fiscal year. So that means between now and June. How are they going to solve that? Are they going to cut? Are they going to try to put backdoor taxes onto the communities? Are they going to tell us in some instances we got to raise our motor vehicle tax triple the times that what we're doing now? You've got a $100 motor vehicle tax, now it's $300. So these are all backdoor taxes that are being put on the communities so that we can have the ability to raise revenues. When we were up at the MMA conference, we talked about maybe going a little bit higher than 2.5. They don't want to hear it. So, you know, it's a struggle for communities like Dartmouth that are kind of in that spot where, you know, we're considered a community that can ability to pay, but in fact, we don't have the revenues to do that. You know, and that's what we've struggled with. This is nothing new. This has happened over the last 10 years. Look at our state aid record for the last 15 years. You could draw a straight line. So these are the outside factors that we're dealing with, and we would love to say, listen, we have a money machine in the back room. We're just printing money, but the problem is we have to be prepared for whatever they come down with, and I'm fearful that between now and June, they could potentially, if we're lucky, keep level funding on the state aid and make no additional cuts to state aid. And this is something we have to be cautious about.
So the other issue, though, with state aid is if you apply the inflation rate, it's actually going down.
30%,
It's
30% over the last 10
It's not
years,
going
yeah.
up.
Right.
So it's even worse
Right.
than just a figure.
I mean, you've got three sources of revenue. You've got taxes that we can only bring 2.5 in. You've got the state aid, which is kind of flat right now, and you have local receipts. So, you know, we can only do so much with local receipts. We cross our fingers that people are going to buy cars. We're collecting excise tax. We're earning the most we can on our investment income. But we're locked into that. We can't just go out there unless it's an override, like was mentioned before. Those are the only real ways to generate new funds for the town.
The point I was trying to make is even with one override, it's 2.5%. And the whole budget is growing at 3.3%. So the more it grows, the more we're going to have problems. And the way we've handled it in the past is to cut the general government.
But an override would adjust the budget so that you would pick up the
can't-
costs on a rolling basis. So from the override perspective, you've got a lot of decisions to be made as far as the community is concerned. What to override and what for. Water, sewer, new school, operating. So I agree with you, it's all coming fast. But if it's my understanding, and I know I'm new at this, isn't that what the Budget Advisory Committee is for, or do I misrepresent my understanding there?
So there's a lot of things that could potentially happen. Though that takes a lot of planning. So we talked about override in the past. If you remember last year, we had thrown that out. We talked about maybe potentially going for one, and not just for the schools, but maybe for the town. On the general government side, we still have some shortfalls that we like to do. So that's something that if we're going to do it, we need to start sooner than later. And if you look at the communities in Massachusetts, last year there were 70-some communities that potential overrides. Doesn't mean that they passed. Most of them probably failed. That number has doubled So that number is now 100 and some, are going out there looking for an override. So what does that tell you? The state is pushing this back on the communities to say, you figure it out, you generate the revenue. So when that number is doubled in the last 2 years, what does it mean in fiscal '27? Is that going to now triple? Are you going to have 3/4 of the communities in Massachusetts going to try to attempt an override? So this is where we are. This is where we are. I think that both Cody and I have had the conversation that could be on the table, and we look at that potentially, but that needs a lot of thoughtfulness and needs a lot of, we need to think that out before we say, oh, we're gonna go for an override. It takes a lot of careful planning to make it done right.
Brian, please. Can we wait to be recognized until we speak? Because some haven't spoken. Patrick?
So, no, we've seen expenses, 10, 15%, every year over year. And I know we're constrained to the 2.5% every year to raise taxes, but when you were at the MMA convention and they said there was talk about, was that about raising the cap, like from 2.5 to 3, but the state doesn't want to hear that? And now the motor vehicle excise, what have they given the ability to raise that up to?
Nothing right now.
Nothing yet?
Yeah, the
That's
governor has
being talked
filed
about.
a bill, the
Okay.
Municipal Empowerment Act, that would give the communities the local option.
Yeah.
So the community would have to accept that through town meeting. It doesn't exist right now, though.
So it's just year over year where expenses are up tremendously. There's no cap on that, but the revenue is where the cap is. And it's
limited, yeah.
It's just getting to be unsustainable.
And if you think on an $80 million levy, what 0.5% would mean? I mean, that's a lot, that's a big number for communities like Dartmouth. And not allowing communities like Dartmouth to have that ability to tax at least 3% or up to 3%, I think is,
And also, when was
Not-
that cap put into place?
1980.
80? Yeah, so it's like things go up over time. You have to
You're
you have
talking
to
40-some years, 50, what's happened between that and now, and look at what's happened as far as like inflation up and down, and now we're probably one of the highest inflationary rates in the period. We're being a stronghold on how much we can raise.
Terry?
I just want to add to the conversation that obviously it's a long-term solution that we have, but the education of this community is critical. We were in three workshops this year, and the attendance was abysmal. But we do have a representative government, and at that meeting, there have been some good conversations about this problem and what we can do, but these people at the table, even the select board members, are not going to be able to solve it. So it's really up to the community to decide what they think is important. It's difficult these days because people don't trust government. They just don't think we do a good job. But the word has to go out that it's not just to the parents of kids, it's to everybody. And why would I, who have no children, why would I benefit from supporting the schools? That argument needs to be presented to people so that they understand. And that's going to be a long time before any proposal, because what Cody, I couldn't remember if it was Cody or Gary said, overrides are tricky. They're very tricky, and they don't go as well. And when you run one and it doesn't go well, it's pretty hard to run another one.
Carrie?
I did just look it up. Success rate of overrides in 2025 was 58% of the towns successfully passed their overrides. Just thought I'd bring
Were
that
they
up.
operating or capital?
I don't know. This is what
Yeah,
Google's telling me.
that's
So,
that's
I mean,
how you
I'm
got to
believing
figure it
Google.
out.
I have looked at them, and they're mostly combined.
Let me look into
I think
it.
they won't go
Hi.
for-
Deidre?
Two comments. In regards to regionalization, 2 weeks ago, there was an editorial in the Boston Globe about water resources in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they highlighted the Quabbin Reservoir issues out there. I think I've mentioned it in one of my first meetings here. I sent the editorial to Cody, and I said, what infuriated me about the article is it talks about the Commonwealth. It talks about the Ipswich Bay. It talks about the South Coast and the South Shore. Never mentions some of the largest cities in area mass in the Commonwealth on the South Coast. We have Fall River, we have New Bedford, we have Dartmouth in the middle, we're buying 2.5 million from water over here, and some water planning from an engineering perspective conversation that talks about a $5 million water line between Fall River and here. If we're really talking about regionalization, water, I think, would be an awesome thing to really, truly think about, which is why I sent it to this gentleman and said, why don't we create our own water resource like the MWRA? That's pretty big. I wrote down regional dispatch because we tried that on the North Shore, and it was a pretty big Brexit as soon as it happened. Newburyport pulled because we just wanted to run it ourselves. So there are pros and cons to the operational kinds of components of regionalization, but the opportunity for bigger thinking is pretty big. And the only thing else that I'll kind of roll into it, again, I'm new here, is I first came on board when the monies from the Park and Recs grants were denied, and I don't understand that. That's the kind of grant thinking I'm thinking about. And I mentioned that to Cody as well. That was a pretty big $2 million, and it involved water and water resources. So I kind of throw that because that was a pretty big opportunity. The other last thing I think I'll say today is that I listened to the meetings of DPW because I'm the liaison to that department. I'm sorry to public health, I haven't gotten to you yet. But when I see the amount of engineering studies and the amount of engineering work being done in the town of Dartmouth by your three big guys, Webson and Goliath, Webson and Sampson, you've got a $25,000 at DPW, and we're doing something else at DPW, all engineering. And they typically will result in, here's the plan in order to move that forward. So I would love to know how much money we're spending on engineering services in the last couple of years, and if and what that is moving forward.
Deirdre?
Did I make any sense whatsoever?
Of course.
Thank you.
However, can we go back to the school budget?
Oh, of course, but it just kind of piggybacked
Sure, they're
around the
excited
corner.
about
I'm
that.
so sorry.
John?
On the school budgets and budgets in general, and the pickle we're in and the pickle we've been in for a number of years. It's my belief and feelings that we as leaders, and I say leaders, finance committee, select board, school committee, has got to figure out a way and present to the town a solution,
Yep.
an override of this. We can't rely on, well, what do they want? What will they accept? They're looking to us as leaders. And we've got to go to them with a recommendation. This is what we think may or not work. This is what we think will happen if we do nothing. We'll be forced to make decisions on education, or we start cutting police, we start cutting road maintenance, we start cutting. Those are the kind of things that we need to educate people on. But still, we need to go in with what we think is best. They expect that from us. And we're not doing that. We haven't done that the last few years.
I agree.
We need to get together and sit down as groups and combine and say, what's going to be the plan? We need to do that sooner than later. I know an override is going to be tough, and that may be just one piece of the puzzle, but it's up to us to make those recommendations to town meeting. I'm tired of everybody, and I'm part of it, just sitting on our hands, you know, like it's going to go away. It's not. And, you know, we've been through rough times and good times, and we've talked about regionalizations in the past when times get really rough and then times get better, the whole thing disappears. Because regionalization doesn't happen overnight. I agree. We should be looking at that. But that's a long-term solution to put something like that together. And we start going down that path when things are tough, and then when things get better, everybody seems to forget. You know, I've seen it 3 times in my lifetime and being a town meeting member for decades now. So, again, as leaders, we need to get our heads together and propose something to town meeting.
Brian?
I think there are a number of different options, and I think what we really need to do is under cost reductions, create a list. Under regionalization, create a list. Under increasing revenue, create a list. Go through those lists and figure out the easiest ones, pick the low-hanging fruit, and get together a plan under each of those things where we can cut costs, increase revenue, or whatever we need to do, and then see in the short term and in the medium term how close we can come to mitigating against that 3.3% budget creep every year, which may include cost override, I mean, not cost override, Proposition 2.5. May include a couple of those, maybe the first year, maybe the third year. But we need to get a plan that's backed by numbers financially that mitigates these rising costs again in general government as well as the schools.
Thank you. Can I bring us back to the school budget
I
again?
just said, mitigating the increases in the school
We
budget.
have a budget advisory group meeting a week or so, forget the date. And I'm sure you're going to share those ideas.
I will.
And getting back to the schools, you know, I think this is all good discussion. This is a discussion that must be had in this town. But the immediate problem that we're looking at right now, and what's in front of us, is that we're talking about an $800,000 plus shortfall in allowing the schools to maintain level services. Never mind the implementing any of the budget recommendations, which me as a father of children in the school system, I understand personally the need that is being requested, right? I know why the registered behavioral technicians are being requested. I know why the additional teachers' assistants are being requested, because my kids are in it. And we don't have a money tree. We don't have the ability to print money in the back. But to ask the schools for a third year in a row to not at least maintain level services, to me is wrong. So I don't know how we go about figuring that out, but it's something that we need to figure out before town meeting, to enable the schools for the first time in multiple years at least maintain level services, like the rest of the town, has been able to do.
So, Mr. Kiley, what are the opportunities for using, and I know it's a sensitive topic, using the monies that you have? 2.1 approximately in school choice funds, 300-something thousand dollars in a kindergarten stabilization fund. That's significant money.
Yeah, so, you know, it's one-time money. So we, last year, went through the whole discussion regarding school choice, and I think, you know, the plan here, which gets us to the point of spending what we, you know, bring in, is a smart, fairly long-term, 5 years over the life of it, be 4 years after this year. You know, a smart way to approach it. Could you use more one time? Sure, you could. Similarly, the kindergarten, well, I guess it's not really similar. The kindergarten stabilization account was created when the town had half-day kindergarten and was going, it was before my tenure, it's about 20 years ago, was going to full-day kindergarten, and there was probably very valid concerns that it may not be sustainable budgetarily to continue full-day kindergarten. And at that time, so they created this fund, and it was funded by the school department budget annually, $50,000 a year. There's $367,000 in it. We haven't funded it in years because, to be honest, the purpose of the establishment of that account no longer exists. I mean, we can't go back to half-day kindergarten. Like, that's not even a thing that, you know, is a consideration. So, so that money is available and should be spent at some point for sure. Now, it's one-time money. It's never going to have another penny of income in it. So I don't, you know, yeah, we could use it.
It doesn't solve the problem, though, is what you're saying. right?
Well, I mean, it could solve a very short-term problem, but it you know, Mr. Haddad and I were talking about this, and with Dr. Sabe McGuire and Mr. Carrero, we met the other day, and we were talking about that. The thing is, I mean, it just increases the cliff,
Yep.
which, okay, if you're going for an override and you're going to get the override, maybe that's a strategy you use to spend it. But if you don't get the override, then it just increased your cliff by.
But it's a structural deficit. This plan is a structural deficit. My new glasses is FY '34, there's a structural deficit of something. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, so.
But my point is we have a structural, we're talking about structural deficits on an average basis of 3.3%. When you use one-time revenue to fund your operating, your structural deficit is in there somewhere.
Right,
So
so,
it becomes an operating issue with that there's not enough money to fund operating budgets, period. So, but I wholeheartedly agree, using more school choice funds just perpetuates structural deficits with the use of one-time money.
would be a short-term potential solution that increases the problem.
Maybe you have to look at it in combination with an override, something else to get us past the first year, if we had a plan that went out 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, to mitigate costs.
Well, the challenge that we face is, we say override, and we say it very lightly, but first of all, there's the odds that it won't pass. And those have been proven in Dartmouth. So you're kind of facing that, and it's not just, we don't wake up and all of a sudden there's an override. There's a series of steps and votes that have to be taken long before anybody agrees on what the override will be. And the problem we have now is immediate and will not be solved by an override that may or may not happen 2 years from now. That's the question that we face. That's why I ask about money that I see sitting there. And we all know this, we've all been around here a couple of years. It was done in the past to solve a problem. Of course, it also caused a bit of a problem at the same time, but it also solved a problem, and that's why 1 year was very low as far as what the schools received for their cut, whatever, their increase. I'm sorry.
I hear us talking a lot about the problem, and it's great. I love it. But I'm not really hearing any solutions. I'm not hearing any solutions at all other than cutting staff.
No, is
So,
increasing revenues?
Well, how? Wait, I haven't heard a solution, so
Well,
I'm just
there are
throwing it
things-
out there to the community that
There are things
there
that,
isn't a solution.
there's things like.
We need one.
Well, I mean, this is small potatoes, but that's the reason I was talking about getting a complete list under each of these things. One of the things you could do is, I believe it would be legal to put a tax on food for Dartmouth.
We have a local meals tax.
Oh, we already did.
We do,
All right.
yeah.
So it's these sort of things. That's a small thing, but you'd have to really go through each of them to
We'll
find
be
out.
voting on this budget in a pretty short time.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'd like to be really talking about how are we going to solve this problem?
Well, this is a long-term problem. It's not a one-year budget problem.
It's
a
short and
structural-
long.
It's a
It
structural.
is a structural problem, but what are we going to do for the next upcoming school year?
I don't know.
Are we not gonna
That's
fund them?
why, as John Souza was saying, we have to get in a room with everybody and figure it out.
Or they
All the
spend the
cost
money that they
drivers.
have, and I'm not suggesting but that's money that they have. I know.
Bigger cliff next year.
Well, you wanted to solve it now. Terry?
We need a plan.
Doesn't really help the problem long-term, because the school committee, are there empty seats at the elementary or middle school level? And has the school, no, there aren't, okay.
We would not entertain increasing
Affect
school
class size,
choice
okay.
population at the elementary level.
Oh, that wouldn't
There's been a
solve it.
little bit of discussion about the middle school. We average 21 kids in a classroom at the middle school.
Yeah. Kids these days.
There's not much room.
Have you ever thought of regionalizing your elementary schools with great configured, specific buildings? K2, 3, 5,
Well,
you've got some building issues, facility issues, new
Problem.
buildings coming in.
a major problem, so we've thought about a lot through the years. I mean, I'm in year 16 here. The thing with Dartmouth is it's the third largest community in Massachusetts, and the more we spread out, like if we had a K2, it's like the high school. It's kids from everywhere in town, right? And so it could be done, possibly, but you have to look at, transportation costs and whether or not you could accomplish that with the existing transportation system might be an issue, because, you have to cover the third largest community in Massachusetts with multiple different configurations. It can get kind of tricky. And our buildings are not centrally located, so, well, two are, but the others are definitely not. So, so that makes it difficult. But.
Thank you.
Speaking of transportation costs, I sent you some information the other day.
Yes, you sent me a question, so I've prepared some information about that. So a member of the Finance Committee, the chair sent me, on behalf of a member of the Finance Committee, a question about transportation fees. So I guess what I would say is that at this point in the process, the school committee has not entertained instituting a transportation fee. So I don't want to speak, I can't speak for the committee regarding this. I can only offer you my own opinion and some information about what a transportation fee would entail. Last year, we charged $374,921 in fees. So the Dartmouth Public Schools charged families $374,921 in fees that offset expenses. So pretty substantial amount, I think. In terms of charging transportation fees, so there's a lot to consider, but our cost of transportation is about 2% higher than the state average. It's one of the few areas we actually are above state average in spending. That's not necessarily a good thing, but it is mostly because we are the third largest community in the state and we're super spread out. Of the 20 largest school districts in the state, we're 17th in cost. So if you look at land area and you know, Taunton is big, Plymouth is big, there are a whole bunch of other, large communities, some on the South Coast, we're 17th in cost. So I think that tells you that we're getting pretty good bang for our buck, despite it being costly to manage, such a large community. So in terms of fees itself, 17% of Massachusetts school districts charge a transportation fee. They average $250 a student. So about 55 districts charge a transportation fee. We had a transportation fee. So about 20 years ago, we, in Dartmouth, established a transportation fee. It lasted 1 year. There was community outrage. Not to say that's 20 years ago. That's ancient history, I guess. But there was community outrage, and the select board the following year said, we're going to take care of it. Stop charging the fee, and they gave the money to the school committee. So, a little context on that. In terms of like what it would mean, some students wouldn't be eligible. So, if a student's low income, they wouldn't be eligible to pay a fee. If the student in grade K through 6 lived more than 2 miles from the school, they can't be charged by law. If students have an individual education plan, an IEP, they can't be charged. So about half our kids come off the rolls with those categories. There's other things that we would need to take a look at that are beyond sort of our scope in terms of increased traffic, because I would assume that you'd have more parent pickup and drop off and less people paying the fee. Increased traffic, particularly on Slocum Road, Dartmouth Street, Russell's Mills, Tucker, Bakerville, Cross Road, Hawthorne Street. The areas where we have problems now. So, that obviously Chief Levesque would, and his team would need to take a good look at that and see what the impact might be. The other thing is, we do have already parents picking up and dropping off their kids. We'd have more. We have a very limited window of staff time after that we pay for currently, after dismissal, so after the bell, we have staff for a period of time, and those staff members get kids safely to their parents. I would imagine if we increase that in any significant level, we would probably have to pay additional staff. So there's a bunch of considerations. One thing that I'm really concerned about is potential for increased tardiness and absences. It's the exact thing that we are fighting to minimize. It's been an area of focus for us. Kids in school do well when they're there on time. So we really don't want to increase, those issues. And then the other thing is we have, I'll just be frank, horrible sidewalk access to the buildings. So if not paying a fee means, more kids are going to walk, I don't think we're in a good position to accommodate that. We don't have a good system in this town to, for student walkers, in almost all cases. So I'm just speaking for myself, not speaking for the school committee. They have not entertained it at this point. Those are some of my concerns, but I have shared them previously with a member of the finance committee.
I think what
raised
caught
them.
my attention with this, and you have the data, obviously, that I sent you. I mean, first of all, if you were to undertake this, you should, and I'm sure you would, talk to the 57 communities to see how they implemented it. And one of them is very close. Westport's had it for years. But the thing that really caught my attention was, and this is from almost 20 years ago, was that it apparently generated almost $700,000 a year. Now, I realize that number could change, but it's hard for that not to catch my attention when, you need more income.
Yeah, I think with the average fee being $250, I can't see it generating more than maybe $200,000 of revenue, but it depends. It depends what participation rate you get and what, maybe you need less buses because of it, because you get more parents driving to school. Now, in my opinion, that's not a good thing for us. We don't need more parents at school every day, pick up and drop off. We need more kids riding the bus. So that would kind of counter that. But, I don't know, maybe it could save you a bus. So that would be some money saved. But yeah, I think realistically, if we were looking at an average fee, it could be a couple of $100,000 potentially.
I hate to overlook a couple $100,000. Go ahead.
So I think you gave a lot of good reasons why that could be challenging on charging transportation. But I'm just thinking my own experience, like, do we have a good handle on how much additional revenue is generated by the schools through student activities or donations to PTOs? I think of all the things that I spend money on with my kids at school, for school, going to a theater performance or going to an athletic event.
Yeah, I have an idea. So like I said, we, in terms of fees, that's not exactly what you're asking. We generated almost $375,000 last year. But the fundraising groups, in order to fundraise and represent that they're a school group fundraising, they need to come before the school committee, and the school committee approves the fundraising requests annually. So each PTO, for example, comes in and says we're going to have cookie sales, booster-thon, a bunch of different activities, right? So yeah, I know how much it is. It's $450,000 that they raise each year for school activities. That's the PTOs, the booster groups like DSMA, our music association, and student groups themselves raise a significant amount of money, like sports teams, music-related groups, robotics, different groups. So yeah, about $450,000.
So between those $450,000 plus another $300,000 in additional fees, we're already tripling what we could potentially maybe get from a transportation fee.
Well, it's about eight and a quarter between fees, but I mean, we're already getting those right now. Well, the funds do go to PTO, but, I mean, that's PTO support our programs, so,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Janine, just one last question.
Yes.
So, Jim, at the FY '26, when we settled FY '26, that was a 4.2%.
Yeah.
Was that considered a level fund at that point? Was the budget level funded at 4.2%?
Yeah, we had, so one of the things that we've done through the years, and I think the thing that has kind of helped us survive and support the increased needs of students is we have reduced staff, we have reallocated staff, and some combination of that in each year, for the last, I don't know, it's been a long stretch. So, really to meet those needs, mostly it's staff related, to meet those increased needs of kids. So we've, reallocated staff basically to do that. So level service, we've increased class size. That's not level service. But we have traded that to try and meet the needs of our neediest kids. So I guess I'd say we're not really providing level service to all kids and all families.
So in essence, to get to that same scenario this year, that would mean that you would request 5.2%, an increase of 1% of what was given to you for a level, well, we'll
Yeah.
call it level services, level budget over FY '26.
I think that's generally correct, Gary.
Thank you.
You just have one more question. Sure. And it's just to address something that I've heard sort of mentioned from time to time in various contexts. The Dartmouth Public Schools historically turns back very little at the end of the year, where, and I think there's some curiosity as to, how on a $55 million budget we could possibly forecast so accurately that we turn back $800. It's like 1/1000%. Can you help us understand why that, how that happens?
Yeah, first, contrary to public opinion, I'm not perfect, and I can't predict it that well. So I am not taking any credit for that. But I wish we had a lot of money to turn back. If we did, that would be great. The reality is, we're a low-spending district, right? We're real low. We're $3,800 a kid below, and we have lots of needs. And so, because we're such a low-spending district with needs, at the end of the fiscal year, one of the things that we do, the first thing on our list is to prepay special education tuition. So we've been doing it every year of my tenure here, and it was done before me, too. It's a smart thing. A lot of districts do it. There's the Massachusetts general law allows for prepayment of special education tuition. Now, the reason it's a good practice is it allows for a one-year buffer. So what you're doing in June, you are paying for tuition that is coming due in September, October, November, and so on in the following year. In the event that there was an extraordinary increase in special education expenses in the following year, you could survive it without having to go back to town meeting. If that extraordinary increase doesn't occur, then you prepay it again, and you're back to square one. If it does occur, the following June town meeting, you're going to have to increase your budget by whatever you're prepaid or whatever you've used of the prepayment. So it gives you time to react to the most volatile area of a public school budget. All it takes is, the needs of one student to impact a school district more than $250,000, sometimes $300,000+. So that's a big variable that you have no control over. So We also, in Dartmouth, we don't have a special education reserve account. So there was a little discussion recently at the school committee meeting about that. And one of the things, it was brought up when we started talking about the kindergarten reserve account. Should that instead be a special education reserve account? Now, in Dartmouth, we've never had one. So a lot of communities do, and basically, it's meant to do the same thing that we do by prepaying. But $300,000 in it, you know, that could be used for something like that. I mean, the alternative to not doing this at all would be you either increase the budget or you hit the FinCom reserve fund and use that up every year for special education expenses. I mean, those are the only alternatives. So things happen in special ed. I think we do it prudently, and that's the first thing we do with our money at the end of the year. If you pay the same amount every year, then it just is always the same amount. So the amount you're spending, you know, that we prepaid in fiscal year 25 is being used now for students in fiscal year 26, which hopefully will be able to free us up to be able to pay it in June of 26 for fiscal year 27, and just keep going and going and going. It just buys you time. That's all it's doing. It's buying you time.
Just to follow up on that, that's exactly how it needs to be done to ensure that the school department at any time during the school year doesn't take a mid-year hit. The other thing at end of the year that I would do is fill the postage meter, top off your tanks, your oil tanks, propane tanks, anything that you could possibly justify under MGL that would allow you to do that so that you could utilize the monies that were raised and appropriated for public education in the appropriate manner. Every last cent. I had like $4 left in a budget June 30th. I went to the post office and bought stamps. You typically want to spend every last cent you're appropriated, particularly when we've been taking hits for so long. So.
Terry?
I'll start off by saying that I don't have a solution. But when I joined the Finance Committee, I heard stories about the town of Dartmouth shutting off streetlights, every other streetlight. The place was in just chaos, it sounded like to me. And since that time, what has happened is we have a long-term capital planning committee. Now there's a budget advisory group, and that's going to solve the long-term problem. At some point, we do have to solve this problem. And I don't know, I think one of the reasons they go to the school budget is because it's huge. And they feel like there's more, but as you start looking, and that was the other thing I was going to say, I have learned in the 10 years that I've been here that there is almost no fat. The department heads do the best they can to manage with the money they have. And it really can never be towns versus schools. It's not like, I know in some towns it's like they feel the towns aren't managed well, or in other towns they feel like the school's not managed well. That's not the case here. Both are managed very well. So it is, and the other problem is, I know people talk about revenues, but municipalities have very little room to bring in revenue. We could talk to our friends, get people to move in, their businesses here, but I don't know what else a town can do except, right, and I understand that people don't want to pay more taxes. Why would they?
Now, I'm also going to say something that isn't going to solve the problem immediately, so. A couple weeks ago, the police chief came before us and talked about his capital plan. And one of the things that he was requesting was a staffing study. Now, I realize that's a little bit different for what he was looking for, but it made me think about the fact that, especially for a department that is more than half of our budget, have you ever looked at a operational efficiency study from a third party?
We haven't done one. I mean, you you know we're low-staffed and we're low-spending, but.
I'm not
but
suggesting
no,
that you
But I
do
know
it.
that that's not, a direct answer to your question. So, no, we haven't done we have lots of audits and oversight from the Department of Ed. We're pretty much constantly in a state of oversight, even though the U.S. Department of Ed is like a fraction of what it used to be. Massachusetts is still gung-ho, so they're not our favorites necessarily, but they're around a lot. So, I mean, we do well on all those reviews in terms of
Not a
what
review, it's
we're
an
providing.
outside party that you hire.
No.
I'm just wondering if it's ever a consideration with such a large budget.
I can't speak for the school committee on it. I
I'm
mean, it
not
certainly
asking you
could
to.
be.
It's an
We have
idea.
outside auditors too, but, in terms of,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what they look at are the finances.
yeah, yeah.
No, I understand, believe me, I've spent,
outside auditors, these are not friends of people who live.
right. No, I've looked at a couple of studies that were done in other school districts, and they're very in-depth. And they look at all sorts of things that maybe you're not thinking about. I know you say you are, and I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that sometime a third-party review, and it just caught my attention because, our police chief is very good with his budget. And he's asking to have it, take a look to make sure he's staffed correctly. And I thought, this is something, and I'm not suggesting, maybe the whole town could do it, but I'm just saying, seems like with the budget dilemma that you're facing, it might be worth a look.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say, we've been prudent in terms of, the way we have adjusted our staffing. We've reduced staffing through the years and reallocated staff, like I said, to meet those students' needs. I'd like to think that we have a very good handle on it, but I totally understand your point, so.
Who's the outside auditor?
It's the town's auditor. What's the name now?
CBiz.
They keep CBiz now. They keep changing, getting
So
bought
you're
out.
not using a school auditor like Grady, O'Connor, and all those
No,
guys?
not anymore. We used to. We used to use Hagen Sahadi years ago, but we just do it with the town audit. It's just easier.
Even your student activities accounts and all your specific accounts like that? Thank you.
We're done with our problem solving?
Or lack thereof.
We're going to rely on the Budget Advisory Group to fix
Yeah.
that, get back to us.
Got a meeting coming up, it's going to be hot in that room. No more questions for Mr. Kiley? Or? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all for your consideration. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Jim.
patience.
Nice work, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim.
We understand there's not easy solutions to this, and we
all
appreciate
your
your
work on this.
thoughtfulness and your time.
No, thank you.
How many snow days do we have?
We're on June 23rd.
7
with 7
snow
snow
days.
days.
Oh,
We
ouch.
haven't done that in years.
6/23?
Yep, June 23rd, Tuesday, is our last day of school right now.
Tuesday.
Right after.
I'm sure. It's probably exploding right now.
Wow. 7 school. This is old school snowmageddon.
To rebook my trip to Italy. Have to move it.
Thank you.
The last man.
No problem.
Last man standing,
It's okay.
or sitting.
Those three.
We're a fun group to listen to.
Generally, we really are.
We are. We don't brawl amongst ourselves very often.
I was thinking again, what a great idea that is. that you
So, town administrators update.
came up with school choice.
I had a good idea for this. Do you have any idea?
I know.
Sorry.
Let Cody speak, please.
Oh, Cody speaking?
Oh, yeah.
Will be.
I didn't know. Who's whispering?
Sure. We've just been very busy working on the budget. As I mentioned, health insurance did come in at about 8%, which is actually good. It's crazy to say that 8% is good, but it is, considering, some communities are facing 20. So that, like I said, that was helpful, freed up a little bit of cash for us. Happy to share, we got a $250,000 Green Communities grant,
Thanks,
which will
Jim.
actually all go towards the Quinn School. for some energy efficiency projects over there, HVAC upgrades. So our energy manager, Kathy Stanley, has been working diligently on that. Monday, we'll be presenting a long-range capital, basically a recommended debt schedule for the select board to consider and see if that's something that they want to take up. The first of that debt would be taken out in fiscal '27, so this coming year, for some of the enterprise funds. And then we'd have some debt in the general fund through a debt exclusion in '28 to cover things like the school roof. And then you get into 2030, and, you know, you're looking at potentially $150 million for a new school. That would be through a debt exclusion. So that'll be presented on Monday night to the select board.
Excellent. I saw that you started the education series for the different departments, a sign-up.
Yes, so Citizens Academy will begin on April 1st. I think as of this afternoon, we actually may be full already, but I would encourage, if anyone's interested, to still sign up, and we'll kind
I
of
was
keep it
going to
reserved.
ask if we can sit in necessarily. I don't want to take somebody else's spot because we can learn
If
about
there's
government
additional
anything.
seats, yes, but in some of the places, we only have room for 20
Okay.
or 25, because we're going to do some at the police department, we're going to do some at some of the rooms in the library,
Mm-hmm.
the COA. So if there's room, definitely, not opposed.
Sure.
It's-
I'm assuming they'll be recorded.
No, we're not recording these. No, we want to be able to give an intimate experience for people,
Okay.
for people to be able to speak kind of freely, ask questions. And so in speaking with other town managers, administrators that have done this, almost all of them have recommended not recording this. They think that the class gets more out of it because they feel the ability to kind of speak more freely, knowing they're not being recorded.
Okay. Deirdre?
Question in regards to this schedule, potential debt schedule, you called it? So the recommended debt schedule for '27 includes some things that you're excluding?
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
no exclusions in '27. It's all enterprise-funded debt in '27.
Okay, and then you read off like the new school and a few other things, did I hear? And isn't that kind of the conversation that we were just having regarding overrides?
That's just a debt exclusion, though. That's not.
But it's so, and again, I'm new here, right? So when I say override, you say debt exclusion, and it's the same thing?
No.
No, okay, could
So
you?
an override allows us to fund operational expenses, so that the school's budget, the
Okay.
police officers, reoccurring expenses.
Right.
And you tax that
Got it.
through, that's indefinite. So if we got a $5 million override, next year it's 5 million plus 2.5%.
Right,
Debt exclusion is a vote to temporarily pay the debt on a specific project until it's paid off.
okay. But you're asking the voters to go to the polls for both of those?
If that's something, that- if the town
override-
chose, if the
Thank
town
you.
chose that, yes.
So my point is, as we educate and plan and get everything and people to understand, an override, if the town of Dartmouth is using this language, because it's different, if the town of Dartmouth is using override to override operating budgets and debt exclusions to put buildings in debt that capitalize for 20 or 30 years, you're still going to the polls on both. And if you put them together in some manner and had a ballot question or not, but this is the kind of thinking that you're going to have to be doing to incorporate both of these, because the general fund is never going to have enough money to operate unless you override that tax base. And then you're going to exclude raising taxes to fund your building projects. So we're going to the voters a lot here, is my point.
My question is, does debt exclusion go to, debt exclusion, does that go to the polls or does that go to town meeting?
Goes to both.
It goes to the polls.
All goes to polls.
So what happens with a debt exclusion is authorization to borrow is something that town meeting has to approve.
Oh, I see.
And then the voters have to approve the exclusion of the debt, allow us to tax beyond what we're able to tax for that specific project.
And then
yeah.
you have to build that within your town, you've got to build that within your spring meeting, and your your June meeting and your fall meeting for the elections. If not, you've got to schedule additional special elections for each override or each debt exclusion at the polls. All of it. All these engineering studies that are being done, all your water needs, the $5 million.
Well, water, sewer
Water's
would
enterprise.
not be
Okay,
debt,
so,
excluded debt, 'cause those would be rate funded.
It's rate funded.
Yeah.
Okay. It's rate funded. How much is, I mean, the deferred capital items facing Dartmouth are so significant, in my opinion, and I just kind of go like this, is which I get so excited here. I get so excited here. The $350,000, if I understand, if he's not charging expenses to fund the kindergarten, throw it at the operating budget, but that's a structural for the following year. But maybe we'll figure it out by then.
I think Carrie mentioned what's the solution, right?
Oh, sorry.
What is the solution? I can give you a solution for this year. If there's a commitment to go for an override next year, right? You use those one-time funds.
That's what I'd like to hear.
As long as you
But-
recognize,
but
the
those-
community must
Those
recognize.
funds aren't gonna solve, even those funds are not enough to solve the issue.
Oh, I would. He has almost 3 million in
It
school
actually
choice.
is.
He has almost 3 million
I
in
see
school
what you're
choice plus
saying, use all of that.
367. You know, again,
Then we go for the override next year. That is the solution.
that's a, but
that's how
but if the
one-
override
That's a
doesn't
gamble.
pass in '28,
It's a
Like-
gamble.
And it's a-
Select board
and it's
has
a-
to- Yeah, the select board has
A lot
to
at
approve
stake.
that. But it gives you time to plan
Right.
for that process, right?
That's, to Terry's
that is the
point.
solution.
No, to Terry's
I
point.
appreciate that.
You cannot, there's no way you get an override, successful one, before the voters this year. It's March, so it's obviously not getting on the ballot in April. So you essentially, if you did it this year, you'd have to present 2 budgets to town meeting. Town meeting would have to approve both budgets. One would be a what-if budget. One would be override passes, this is our budget. Override doesn't pass, this is our budget. Then you do a special election, so it's unlikely that happens. So you go maybe to 28, right, and you have some more time. Maybe the select board, if they want to entertain this, put together an override study committee, right, you do those things. Again, keep in mind, I just said, we have a lot of debt. We know we need a high school roof. Memorial Stadium has been a priority for the schools. We must do a new school in the 2030 range to replace the middle school. Whether that ends up being an actual middle school or a high school, we need to go through that process. But most of you were on that tour. We need a new school. That's probably our portion, at least 100 million, probably closer to 150 if it's a high school. So now you're talking a debt exclusion on the ballot in '28 and an operational override on the ballot in '28. And if you do the DOR research on that, it's probably less than 15% that they pass.
I was
And-
just
and
going to
usually
say,
they
that's a
both fail.
recipe
I
for
just sent you
failure.
Another
guys, I just sent
solution?
you guys where I found the 58%. It's an actual article.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like,
Here's another solution.
Excuse me, Deirdre, Patrick?
Thank you.
I just think that if we do, I mean, it's great to kind of solve it in that way, but then say that the override fails. I mean, like I was in high school in 2006, 2007 when we went for an override, and I was like, I remember like we need to get this, and it failed, and we lost teachers we loved, and it was like really heartbreaking in a way. And then not only did we lose that, now we've lost all the balance of the school choice funds, and it's a tough thing. And meeting with the senior center last year, I know we haven't had them in yet this year, but the town's population is aging. You have a lot of seniors that, 1, don't have children in the schools, and 2, they're on a fixed income. So some of them can't afford their taxes as it is, and then you go for an override. They might not outwardly say we're voting no, but they're going to go to the polls, and they are all going to be going to the polls.
Well,
to
keep
vote
in
no.
mind that 70% of the people in town don't have anything to do with the schools.
I don't think that's true.
It is true. 30% and some percent have children that are in school. The remainder of the town doesn't.
I just think it's going to be a big education battle to get it out there.
And,
We also
and,
have, can I just ask, are you town meeting members, people in the audience? So we also have lots of open town meeting slots. And the more that people get involved, the more the word spreads. And I'm optimistic that could happen, so. The argument has to be made that when I'm old and I need somebody to take care of me, I want the person to be kind and well-educated. We need to say that. I'm old already, but not that old.
1862.
Yeah, I think that we have to figure out what the arguments are. And I know I used to work in Mattapoisett. They had council on aging or a senior connection with the chorus, with the elementary school chorus, and they did a performance every year, and it was a great way to keep seniors educated on what was going on in schools. So maybe we need to do more of that.
Yes.
A potential thing to potentially look at for a solution, I mentioned the kindergarten money. If he's not charging salaries there, it's still going to be a little structural, but it's a short term if we're really talking the kind of schedule that you're looking at. Another thing to look at, and I'm going to just throw this out there. At the end of June 30th, like we were talking to Jim, what do we do with end of the year monies? At the end of June 30th, the free cash, that is X number of dollars, call it 5 point something last year, $5.5 million was made up of June 30th money unused. There's valid reasons for a lot of that. But is there anything in there that we could possibly say, yeah, we rolled it again, we raised and appropriated it for the same reason, but we're having a hard time filling this need? Let me be specific. The police department residual salaries, because we are unable to hire our police department officers based on the conversation that we had with the chief, where civil service, 15 miles, we don't like the pool, so we want to make sure that we have our officers in place. He can't find them, and he's more than willing to tell you that he's turning back hundreds of thousands of dollars each and every year. So he wanted to do the study. And I know someone's going to say we can't do it. However, if we took at least some of that money and did the study, we would stop raising and appropriating salaries that we can't fill. If we could figure out how to take it out of FY27 somehow and move it somewhere so that we could free up that money to give to the schools, along with this 300, it could give a little bit of room. So all I'm asking is, if any of the residual monies in June 30th that we continue to raise and appropriate for the same reason might be able to be shifted around a little bit in a short term versus taking out the school choice, which is a massive no. A massive issue if that override fails. In this particular accounting transaction kind of movement around, that would work.
May I shorten your question?
Sorry.
You want to spend our free cash for the schools?
No.
Before it turns into free cash, if I'm
Before it
correct,
turns to free,
reallocate, so reduce, for instance, the police department budget to put it into the schools. What you're saying with it reoccurring turnbacks in the police in particular, it's accurate. However, what I'll say is we're actively trying to recruit, because what I'm hearing directly from
Absolutely.
the Brotherhood Union is some of them are going to start looking for jobs elsewhere because they're being forced to work nonstop. And it's a different generation, not just the police officers, but in a lot of people, where people don't want to work doubles 5-6 days a week.
Absolutely.
That was what used to happen with police, firemen. That was very common. That's not, people value work-life balance now. And so taking the ability away to then fill those positions actually could get us in a bigger hole, where now we have even more positions. What you heard Mr. Kiley mention, with third largest community by mass. I know I don't want to have an emergency at Round Hill and the police officer responding is up at the North Park and has to come from the North Park.
I agree with you.
So there's very, right, these are all, and this is why when Nate talked about, that's why it's our job to consider everything. Because we know that everyone has specific concerns, but we have to be acutely aware of all of the concerns. And
just to follow up, I'm not suggesting that we,
Jader, I'm talking.
oh, sorry.
Another downside of taking the money that way is that the only way this town budgets for capital is the turnbacks. We don't have a capital reserve. So we pay for our capital with that money. And I understand why Jim said they don't turn it back, because they have different bills to pay, but that's how. So if we take that money, how are we going to pay for capital?
Could we get a forecast at what we might be looking at as far as residual monies available this June 30th that would turn into free cash?
Yes.
Before we go to town
Yes.
meeting?
Absolutely 100%. Thank you,
very
Deidre.
much.
I don't think that
The
it
town
can
needs to-
automatically.
Thank you very much.
I don't think that it can automatically be moved.
No,
Because it's that
it's an.
budget.
Well, I think the
This
town
is what
needs
I
to be
want.
aware, if there's zero in free cash at the end of the budget, the town needs to be aware of that, and that's why the schools aren't
Well,
getting.
we always have
their
free
money.
cash. We have to have free cash.
Yes.
Well, the town needs to be aware how much.
We al-
It's their
we
money,
always-
it's their
we always- we-
taxes.
well,
Certified and
One
announced.
minute. So I just want to clarify. Gary and I aren't the bad guys here.
No,
Gary
I'm
and
just
I-
saying, like, we need to
and
be
I understand people
transparent.
have passion, and I respect the passion. And if you want us to tell you that you can afford this budget, I'll do it. But then what'll happen is we'll be Whitman Hanson next year at this time. And so, we're being realistic of what the town can afford. We always provide free cash. Number is always provided. We have a capital planning committee that's reviewed. As soon as we get the free cash number, it's provided to this group. The free cash calculation is much more difficult than it should be. I have this, Gary, myself, and Donna had this conversation because you would think it is just excess revenue, excess funds that weren't expended. That's what free cash is, right? That's what it sounds like it should be.
Before you have a bunch of parents out front, I think transparency of what is available is really important. They need to understand, or else you're going to have people picketing out front saying, because it's happened a couple
So
of
I
years
guess where
ago.
are we not being transparent in what's available? I think
Nobody
we,
sees the transparent budget yet, like it's
I don't
not
think,
out
I think
there
the issue
yet.
is nobody understands.
Nobody
how the
understands
budget-
it,
How
okay.
the budget works.
so I'm open to the suggestions. I think one of the things Gary and I have really done a tremendous amount of work on is transparency in this town. So with all due respect, that actually bothers me personally, because
Okay.
we've spent a lot of time working on that.
I
And
think
so
it's
I'm
less
open to
than-
ideas,
Right, I
if
think
there's
it's less
ideas.
transparency and more understanding.
Understanding.
Because I
Understanding
think
how it
over
works.
time, you figure these things out, but when you first start, you grasp at straws. I don't think that money that's budgeted in one department can be spent
Absolutely not.
by the school unless it goes through a process.
Also, keep in mind, when we certify free cash every year, we typically, if we average that out, it's about $5.5 million in free cash. Over the last 5 or 6 years, the contribution to the schools has been somewhere around $2 million, $2.5 million for capital projects that they needed. I mean, they need way more than $2.5 million for the short-term capital projects. So every time we start that capital review every single year, and now it's being televised, actually, the first thing I educate the committee on is how much available free cash there is. And when we go to town meeting, it's also printed in the warrant. You'll see the reserves, you'll see so I get that maybe people don't understand the word free cash because it's a misdemeanor in a lot of places, and people not understanding what free cash is. But also keep in mind that this committee has a policy to not use free cash for one-time operations.
That's
So,
fine. So how did you calculate the 3.5%? Can you let the town know how you calculate the 3.5%?
It's 3.94% is what
The
we calculated.
3.94,
Yep.
how you come up with
Sure,
that?
you have an idea, it's around 113 million is what we're estimating our revenues to be.
Yep.
What I'll say is, and you brought up a good point, Carrie, the town historically has been able to give a little bit more for the schools maybe than this year.
Yep.
The reason for that is the town has been, through Gary and even with Gary's predecessor, Greg, very conservative with revenues. We've lost all of that flexibility because, like Brian said, right, you get 2.5%. We've been above that.
Yeah.
That money has to come from somewhere. So we've slowly dug into our conservativeness for revenues, where we are now at a point where we cannot, there is no more kind of conservatancy to dig into. So that's where that comes from. So you have and it's pretty straightforward. You take your tax levy, which is prior year's tax, 2.5%, new growth. New growth is on a steady decline. Right, so that's another concern. We were over $1 million 3 years ago. We'll be lucky if we get 600,000 this year. So you add that, you add your local receipts. Local receipts, Gary and I review local receipts every month. We're concerned. We're concerned. We should meet this year, but we're not able to increase for '27 like we have had in the past. Big part of it is motor vehicles, right? People aren't buying new cars. You're seeing it, but there's not as many new cars on the road. The impact of that is motor vehicle excise isn't as good as it is because the value, as your car ages out, you don't pay as much in motor vehicle excise. That's a direct hit on us. And then we're also watching the economy. people don't necessarily go out to eat as much, right, when the economy slows down. That directly affects our meals tax. So we're not seeing the growth there. So we come up with that 113
Yeah,
roughly
investment
million.
income is another piece of it.
Yeah,
Last-
so
last year
interest
we were
rates are-
5%. We're we're down now to 3.9%. So there's a lot of factors that are going the other way. And I think that what's mentioned, what Cody mentioned, is the reason why we're having this conversation now and not 3 years ago is because we were able to be conservative to a point where we've kind of got along. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, yeah, the schools are at a level right now that they need a little bit more, but there's communities that have been out there 3 years ago that have attempted overrides, that had made massive cuts. And so, we continue the conversation with the schools. This is not, I mean, tonight's not the end of it, obviously. This is just maybe the beginning of another, way that we can maybe hybrid this. Maybe we can try to meet some needs that they have. Not saying that we can fulfill everything, but when we get revenue numbers each and every month, Cody and I review those. We look over them. We look at to see what any additional new revenues that the state's coming in with state aid. So these numbers can be adjusted, but the 7% is that's a big number.
It is a
That's
big
a large
number.
number.
I'm not
And
saying
it's
it's
not
not.
saying that it's not needed, but it is a
Yeah.
large number to absorb in the kind of atmosphere that we're in budgetarily. But are we still meeting with Jim? Are we still meeting with the schools? Absolutely. That is not something that's not off the table. I mean, I have a feeling in this budget cycle, we're going to be right to the end, discussing the budget and getting a final budget
So
with the
one
schools.
one
That
other
hasn't
point,
always been the case.
one other point I'd like to bring out, we keep talking about a 2.5% budget override. It's $2.8 million.
I know. I know.
It ain't enough. That's assuming you get it.
No, I'm just trying to be transparent for
No,
the
so
town to
I'm-
hear.
well, I think-
Questions that the town will ask.
I think the town has a big job.
But you can also put the value of money override for
Yeah, but
15
let me
million.
just go back. I think the town has a big job where it has to, transparency is not the right word, but it has to explain the budget to people in town. Maybe it starts with town meeting members and how the thing works. And then what the realities are with the both budgets, non-school plus school, growing at the rate they're growing, and how we're not going to get relief from the state. If anything, it's going to go down because of inflation.
Right.
So we're on our own. And what that means, we have to start looking at cutting costs. I don't know what that means. We have to look at increasing revenue, and we have to look at other things. And we have to actually, work through them and hopefully mitigate that 3.3 every year.
I mean, the Finance Committee has done a great job with the letter that they send out. I think a lot of these items that we're talking about tonight, and, the schools being a big part of this, we've addressed in that letter over the years, and not just last year, last 4 or 5 years. So I think it's getting that message out and continuing that message that really starts to hit home, especially the town meeting members, because they're the ones ultimately that are going to put these to a vote. They're going to put, debt exclusion to a vote. They're going to put an override to a vote. So it's important that the town meeting members get to, digest all this. And I hope that when they get this letter, they're reading it, because there's a lot of it. We spend a lot of time on it. There's a lot of good information in there, and it's really DOR information. This stuff is this is statistical. This is stuff that we're not making, the committee's not making up. These are items that are really affecting, day-to-day residents and how they're obtaining services.
All my data comes from Department of Revenue and also Department of Local Services. And
We always make sure our data is good. The last thing you want is some bad piece, because your credibility goes right down the toilet.
so, I think the issue is we've got to figure out how to mitigate those increases.
Well, we have a budget advisory group meeting coming up, Brian. I hope you're there.
I'm going to be there.
Good, so we'll talk more about it then. Deirdre, is it?
One last question. Are the,
Promises.
I know, I heard this 4 times already.
Don't let them stop you.
one last question, the contract negotiations for bargaining units, is that done? Or do you anticipate that being done? Can that
No,
pretty please with
those
sugar
are
and
not
honey?
done. It's hard to say. I mean, you've been involved in
Yes,
any
yes.
negotiations. It's
The
sometimes
only
they're quick,
reason-
sometimes they're not.
I ask is because there potentially could be some residual monies there with the monies that you have.
Residual.
Unlikely.
I know, but I'm hoping.
had to say it out loud.
I hope. And the free cash discussion I get, I'm just looking at that police salary nut, as you understand what I'm trying to do in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. That's the last thing I'll say tonight.
Can we move on the agenda because
Nate
it's,
has
you know,
something.
6:55? Yes.
Nate.
Oh, sorry.
On the Citizens Academy, we started talking about, before we came back around to what we were talking about before, I've heard a lot of good feedback in the community about it. A lot of people are excited. So I'm hoping that's sort of just like a pilot program, and we're going to continue that on a cycle.
Yeah, if they're successful, we'll continue to do it.
Yeah.
What is that how town government works?
Yeah, we're gonna do, it's, I think, nine courses, 8 or 9 courses, Wednesday evenings, and department heads will come in, provide that information.
And a pre-town meeting.
Yep, we're gonna do a pre-town meeting. We're
Make
gonna-
everybody,
Actually, that's
should
really
make
good.
everybody, town meeting members go.
I'll be there.
I wonder how you
That's
could-
great.
I wonder if you could do that. How would you do that?
Ginny, before we
Spread the
leave,
word.
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Spread the word.
You don't take a
a few things
vote.
before we.
What?
You don't take a vote. You just stay to listen and ask.
Oh, no, I
questions.
understand
Oh, yeah,
that, but
yeah.
I mean, to get them to go so
Oh,
they
get them
actually
to go.
understand what's going
Serve
on.
a
That's
type
what I
A
mean.
lunch in the cafeteria.
That's what I mean. I don't know really, but I've seen some people get the word out and get people there, and some towns have a 0 quorum, and that is not a happy place to be, because the people come in who represent their wants or needs, and we have representative town meeting. We could have an opportunity for a lot of information out there.
And how many members in total? 400?
340.
340, and the total
340
population
elected
of Dartmouth is?
There's 340 seats open, total population is a little less than 34,000,
So 10% representative government.
approximately, yeah.
And it's
That's
important
filled
because
town meeting
town
members.
No, that's open,
officials,
that's total seats, 340.
Isn't it
it's
40
important because
45
town
per
officials can't
precinct?
do it.
No,
Right.
That seems high.
More, I think there are more members in.
Wow, 10%.
And about 190 show up.
Same thing with voters. We have like 10% of the people who are registered voting.
With this kind of need in
Good, on a
town.
good election day. On a good election day.
Well, yeah, on a presidential election.
But I mean, on a regular local election, it can be much lower, unfortunately. Can we move on anyway, please? Because we can't solve everything right now. Liaison reports?
I just have to. A shout out to DPW, just because Snowmageddon was absolutely insane. They were everywhere. They were sleeping
They did a good job.
everywhere. Just really shout out to the department and thank them for everything that they do for us.
Absolutely.
And we should think of them when we think about how, you know, oh, just move some money from this department to that department. Do we really want to take it from DPW?
No.
No, we don't. But
I don't want
I
to take
realize
money
it's
from
not us
anyone.
against them.
I think the idea of
just
a
saying.
water advisory group is
All
is good one,
departments are
too.
good.
Yeah.
We want to fund all the departments, really.
All the departments
We're not.
are of equal importance.
re-
We don't have any minutes, right?
No minutes to approve. So, on the next couple of things coming up, I sent the memo out for CPC. They'll be reviewing their items on the March 10th meeting at 6:30 PM.
Yep.
And I sent that to you. Also, on 3/23 is our next meeting. We'll be continuing the budget discussion. I'll leave that on there. That's.
Monday?
No, wait a minute, let's see.
Yeah, 323 is
No,
the
that's- no,
Monday.
that's something
Are you,
else.
you're not including?
3/12. 3/12.
312 sounds right.
Yeah, 3/12 is the,
Next one,
Come into the meeting on Monday, right?
3/12, 3/12 is
long range?
Oh, just long range? I thought that was the joint finance select board. Okay.
So, 3/23 is the meeting with the select board and the school committee. We're inviting members of the, I'm not going to post it as a meeting, but we're inviting members of the finance committee to join if they'd like to listen, and, ask questions if they like, but I'm not going to post it as a meeting. So,
Buddy does a great job at that meeting, taking
So
questions.
it's not a joint meeting?
no,
Not a joint
it's a joint meeting with select board and school
Is
committee.
it here or is it at the high school?
At the high school.
Okay.
So, and one of the last things, capital is wrapping up. Oh, sorry.
On that subject, Finance Committee has been included on those joint meetings. Is there a reason why that was dropped?
Well, the reason primarily, John, comes from the, what I was advised is that the school committee meeting on Monday, the school committee said, and I'm summarizing here, essentially that they weren't going to move on their budget unless the select board advised them that they needed to. So we're trying to, this is something we typically would do a little bit later in the process, but given I think in the past, there's been some willingness from the school committee to work within what the town can afford. And they want to hear it directly from the select board this year. We're moving that up, and we still intend on doing a full
Joint
joint.
meeting. Because I can't say the joint meeting was that particular topic, but we've had.
Yeah, yep.
Joint meetings are all three committees. I've got.
Keep in mind, we're a month early, so that meeting doesn't really happen until April.
Yeah, we'll still look to
So-
probably do some sort of kind of end of budget culmination meeting with everyone. But this is more of, we need to be earlier in the process, given the events that we're dealing with.
So, a couple last things. Capital has met with the majority of the departments. Today, we met with DPW. We'll be meeting to close up the departments with Harbor, Library, DCTV, Parks and Rec. They will then look at the master capital plan. That will be, and those are being taped, so you can see those on DCTV. We'll wrap that up in about two more meetings, so then they'll make their presentation for what they want for the article, or what they're recommending for the article. So besides that, our next meeting on 3/12, I will leave the budget presentation, the budget discussion on here. We can potentially look at, there's been really no changes, minimal changes, other than us removing the facilities position as far as the town is concerned. So we're continuing discussion with the schools, as we mentioned, and we still should have the meeting on the,
You're keeping up a great pace here, you guys.
Yeah.
We don't anticipate seeing a Schedule A for several weeks.
right, the Schedule A draft budget will probably be I would say, I have it scheduled for end of March, beginning of April, as a draft,
Just curious.
so.
Okay.
We are still working through health insurance. You know, we got 8%.
Oh, I know you
but-
have some
but we
outstanding
are,
numbers.
We're actually scheduling the meeting of the HISC the 12th, right? Next Thursday, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it's coming
Next
up.
week, the HISC, which is the Health Insurance Steering Committee that the Select Board put together, to review some high-level options, which is promising and may give us a little bit of relief.
And I'd like the committee to start thinking about the letter to town meeting, beginning of April.
Got a chill thinking about
Because
that.
I think that, we did it early last year, but this is even better because we
Yeah.
have a little bit ahead of, just to start thinking about format and things like that at the beginning of April, so.
I have been thinking about it. Of course, right about now, it's about 50 pages. I think I got to think a little less.
What are warrant articles do?
Zoning warrant articles were already due. General warrant articles are due at the end of the month.
And that's all I have, Madam Chair, thanks.
Are we good?
Yes.
No dissertations, please, about solving the budget? Okay, good. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second? We are officially, all in favor?
Aye.
Officially adjourned.